Welcome, everybody. My name is Valerie Green, and I'm a relationship coach. I help couples and individuals that are in relationships stop fighting or feeling distant and experience love, intimacy, and passion again. And I'm excited that you're here tonight with me in this webinar because it shows your commitment to creating more of that, more love, more passion, more intimacy, more joy in your relationships. I want to assure you, you've come to the right place because by the end of tonight, I will share with you insights and tools that will help you to stop fighting and stop feeling distant or frustrated or stuck in patterns. You'll illuminate the patterns you're stuck in or that you have been stuck in the past in your relationships. And we will learn concrete tools to be able to reconnect emotionally, both with yourself and feel more fulfilled in yourself, as well as with the other people in your lives, whether you're in a romantic relationship now or whether you're looking to get into one. So, before we get started, I would like to share a couple of suggestions for you. First of all, around the technology. Webinars do take up a lot of bandwidth on your computer. So I encourage you not to be downloading other things at the same time, to close down applications or other browser tabs that you might not need. And because otherwise the slides will be blurry, and I've prepared a wonderful slide presentation that I want you to be able to see. So if you notice the slides are blurry, just make sure that you have all the free bandwidth that you need on your computer. And if you do, the problem usually fixes itself, so no worries. And you can always watch the replay if for some reason you don't have a good internet connection now. Although I do encourage you to be on the live call as well as to stay on the end, until the end, for two reasons. Number one, I'm going to be trying to answer all of your questions. And if you notice, there is a chat box on the lower right-hand side of your screen over here. I will keep it open. You're welcome to ask questions throughout, and if we're ahead of schedule, because I've prepared a lot of really wonderful content. And there's no selling on this webinar, just really useful content. I'm going to be trying to see if there's time to answer questions throughout. But if not, I will get to everyone's questions by the end, and I'll make sure that I'll stay on the line until we've answered everyone's questions. And so that's why I encourage you to stay until the end. And the second reason to stay until the end is that I will be offering you an opportunity for some free customized support from me. That's, even better than typing into a chat window and having me answer via the computer. So I really encourage you to stay till the end to learn about that as well. All right. So I'm going to start sharing this slide presentation. Bear with me because I haven't done this webinar in a while. And here we go. So you should be seeing this wonderful title, and I'm just going to advance to the next slide, which lets you know that this is the right place for you if any of these describe you, just to let you know you're in the right place. So if you're in a committed relationship and you regularly feel misunderstood or unappreciated or alone, I've certainly been there. Or if there's a constant tension between you and your partner, you're walking on eggshells, or passion is zapped by being in a rut. Or if the two of you have grown apart, you trust them less, and you might even be the only one bearing the burden of your relationship improvement. Ouch. Or if you're single and you want insight into why your relationships haven't worked out and what you can do to create lasting love in your next relationship. So now that we've learned a little bit more about you, I'm going to share a little bit more about me before we get started, because you might be wondering, well, who is Valerie Green and what qualifies her to be able to help me transform my relationships? So I've been on a personal growth path for the past 16 years now at this point. And I have really, been into tons of coaches. I grew up watching Tony Robbins with my parents on public broadcasting, and it's all about focusing on what you want and not what you don't want. And, you know, that works in our lives. And although I found it to have really dramatic negative effects, the way I applied it in my relationships in my 20s. So in my 20s, I used to focus on what I wanted, not what I didn't want, but I did so by suppressing my emotions. And so I would sweep conflict under the rug, and I would, you know, either wind up letting it build up like a ticking time bomb until tick, 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 one day when I'm ticked off, right? Explosions and fights, and we would wind up getting caught in the same cycles that I will tell you about later on in this webinar. And I would wonder why my relationships felt like a battlefield instead of a safe haven. So that really started me on a transformational journey in my 20s because I had horrible conflict resolution skills. I mean, I remember one time my boyfriend told me something like, "You hurt my feelings." And I said, "It's your thoughts that cause your feelings to be hurt. I can't hurt your feelings." Ouch. I mean, I just really had no emotional awareness back then. So I really committed myself in those moments to be on a transformational journey to learn how to have truly loving and joyful relationships. And I studied with tons of the best relationship experts in the world, as well as doing my first coaching training about 10 years ago. And I really used those tools in the trenches in my relationships and with my coaching clients for the past 10 years. And my biggest transformation really came about 5 or 6 years ago with my most previous long-term relationship before I met my current partner. And you see, he and I had a major unsolvable issue, and we had the whole gamut of emotions come up. I mean, you name it: fear, hurt, anger, jealousy, resentment, guilt, shame, every emotion that we could possibly experience towards each other. And we were really, you know, at our wits' end. And that's when we worked with the top relationship therapists and coaches in the world to really help us. And that's when I really learned how to feel all my vulnerable emotions, how to be present with all of his and his needs, and really how to say, wow, that must be really hard for you, and fully listen to him in a way where both of us felt completely gotten and understood and loved, even if we disagreed. And I really don't recommend that any couple breaks up until they reach that place of unconditional love and understanding for the other person's point of view, which is what we'll be talking about on this call, because otherwise you'll just repeat the same patterns in your next relationship. So because I healed my own blocks to unconditional love in that relationship, now I can finally say that I've just been in the most loving and blissful and deepening relationship with my current partner for the last several years. And we just experienced the most exquisite love and joy and connection and mutual support that I've ever imagined, which is what I want for all of you. So then I continued to train for the past few years with top relationship researchers and therapists like John Gottman and Susan Johnson, as well as attending the Relationship Coaching Institute. And I took all those skills and I created a system for couples, which even works if I only work with just one person in the relationship, because it really does, you know, relationship is a system where one person can influence the other person, which I'll talk about later. And when I created that system for couples, my clients had breakthroughs in their intimacy, and they were really able to feel a deeper connection no matter how they started out, and experience that level of love and closeness that they longed for no matter what happened. And everyone said, wow, you really have to get this system out to more people in the world. And so that's why I created these classes and webinars, to teach the most high leverage tools to you so that I can get this information out to more people, because it really is my passion to help transform fighting into intimacy. So that's my journey in a nutshell. And tonight we're here to focus on you. So I'm going to show you this slide presentation, and I will take a look at the chat box. Sophie is currently in England and is listening at 1 a.m. Thank you for showing up, Sophie. I'm so excited that you're here. I feel so honored to have you join us tonight. And Juliana as well. Thank you, from Pennsylvania. Thank you both for being here. And anyone, feel free to introduce yourselves, and I'll do my best to, and ask questions, and I'll do my best to acknowledge them in the chat, and we'll have some fun exercises. So I encourage you to get out your notebook. I will be sending a link to a handout for you to look at later, and I'll encourage you to write down notes in your notebook. So if you can get that now if you don't have one, while I load the slide presentation again. And then after about an hour, I will come back for questions. So I look forward to interacting with you. There'll be some fun polls and some fun exercises to do. So I'm going to start the slides again. Great. So here's what we're going to cover tonight. We are going to talk about 5 building blocks to intimacy and love. So this is really what we're going to cover tonight. This is what's on the agenda. So first of all, we'll bust 2 really popular myths that if you believe these, sorry to tell you, but your relationship is destined to fail, because these are really popular myths in our culture, which is why our divorce rate is so high. You'll learn your fighting style, which means how you show up during conflict that leads to a never-ending cycle of disconnection and fighting or distance. You'll learn how to draw your partner closer to you instead of pushing them away. And if you come away with one thing from tonight, that's really what I want you to learn, is how to draw your partner closer. And then you'll learn the rest of the full formula to fix your relationship or save your marriage. So, all right, let's get started, shall we? All right. So let's bust these myths. So myth number 1. If I'm with the right person, there shouldn't be conflict, because it should be easy and feel good all the time. So of course, we get this idea from the movies, or maybe we see couples that seem happy on the outside, but we don't actually see what goes on behind closed doors, do we? So I want to give you my first breakthrough that I had when I was studying relationships, which is the truth is that conflict is the vehicle that drives you to grow and heal. So what does this mean? Well, all relationships go through phases, and the conflict phase is a necessary part of the process. So what experts call the honeymoon phase lasts anywhere between 2 weeks to 2 years, and then every couple experiences the conflict phase. So once you grow through it together, you can experience a deeper love than you had in the beginning, because you've healed and grown together. And I have seen this so many times. So the honeymoon stage is what all the love songs are written about. You think about them all the time. Your heart beats faster when you say their name. Your time together feels magical. And you stay up all night talking and playing. And in the honeymoon stage, there's some powerful hormones coursing through our veins, which actually mimic addictive drugs. And then after a couple of years, the hormones wear off. Bummer, huh? And every couple experiences conflict. This happens to everyone. And what happens? All of a sudden, you notice the things about your partner that annoy you, right? Like in the beginning, you were really excited that you met someone so social, and then you find them to be, too chatty, let's say. And you notice the needs that aren't getting met, like, your needs, which we'll go over later, what these needs are. Things like attention and affection, and, maybe you have different libidos, or maybe you have different cleanliness preferences, or different styles of parenting if you have kids, or different ways of managing money. And these are just things that we saw our parents fight about, and we didn't really learn more useful strategies to collaborate on, learning how to work together on these differing styles of relating to things like parenting and money and cleanliness and all the other issues that commonly come up for couples, because relating to them really helps you both learn and grow and heal. So that's what we'll talk about. So because it exposes these unhealthy behaviors that you learned from your parents and society, for dealing with strong emotions, and for relating to your needs so that you can grow beyond it. Because everything in nature, if you looked at plants and animals, Okay, if you're in New York City like me, you don't see that many plants and animals. But everything in nature either grows or dies, does it not? And the same is true for us. We're meant to keep growing. So I'm just showing this slide that it's a good thing because it exposes these unhealthy behaviors so that you can heal them. And I like this picture. I put this in the slide presentation recently because that's me. My boyfriend and I recently went bouldering, which really tested my agility. I mean, wow, I couldn't imagine climbing up all those boulders before I did it. And but we did. It was exhilarating, and we came upon this tree that was growing out of the rock, literally. And we were really high on the mountain. There's such a gorgeous view. And I just thought, wow, isn't this a great depiction of how everything in nature either grows or dies? And because the tree had all these challenges in this rock, like I was being challenged climbing up the rock too, it was able to grow to much, much, much higher heights than any tree that grows out of the ground, because we were like, you know, really, really, really high up. I should have put a slide in here that showed you the view. It was spectacular. But the tree could grow to higher heights because it grew out of one of these rocks that was already high, but it was challenging. So that's a metaphor for you can reach higher heights in your relationship through growing through the challenges that you have in your relationship now. And I'll share some stories about that in a bit too. Because all healthy relationships go through the fighting stage before working it out and becoming happy again. Unfortunately, most couples never learn this, and they keep fighting through their whole relationship, even if they stay together. And the fact that you're still here, that you're here in this webinar, shows that you're already aware that you're just in a phase and you're ready to grow out of it. And the fact that you're in this webinar, this is, I think, the 5th time I've done this webinar, and I always have a lot of people register. That means that you're not alone, that there's many, many other couples out there that are going through these same challenges. It makes sense that most couples never move beyond the conflict stage because our parents and society don't teach us the tools to grow beyond it, right? You probably learned that fighting is bad and unhealthy, and we've all been in some pretty hurtful fights, so it makes sense that you feel stuck. So I'm here to tell you that there's concrete tools you can learn to stand together as a team and fight the misunderstanding under the argument. Because my assertion is that all fights, and really all ways that there's tension and disconnection as well as fights, are caused by a misunderstanding. And you can learn how to stand side by side with your partner as teammates and fight the misunderstanding, which brings you closer together. But yeah, this requires you to grow beyond the skills that you already have. So when my clients apply the tools that I teach in my coaching system, they're amazed at how connected and loving and joyful their relationships feel once they've mastered these skills to resolve conflict and create love and intimacy for the rest of their lives. And just as an aside, if you don't work through your triggers now, I hate to say it, but they'll just reappear in the next relationship after the honeymoon phase wears off. So you might meet someone else, and the first couple of years will be blissful, just like they were in this relationship or the last relationship was in the beginning. And then you'll find yourself in the same situation again. And listen, I want to make something very clear. We don't want that for you, right? I'm here because it's my divine purpose and mission to take a stand for you and the relationship that you choose to co-create. Has anyone shared with you the full divorce statistics that illustrate that leaving your current partner now while you're fighting isn't a good idea? So, I mean, unless you're in an abusive relationship, which we'll talk about later. So you know that about 50% of marriages end in divorce. That's common knowledge. But what they don't tell you is that the percentage of divorce is much higher in second and third marriages. So the marriage breakup rate in America for first marriages is 41 to 50%. For second marriages, 60 to 67%. And third marriage breakups is 70 to 74%. So wow. I mean, can you believe that? You know, you have a better chance of avoiding traffic during rush hour than making your third marriage work if you leave just because it isn't working out, which is what most couples do. So I hope you're joining me in my realization that it's pretty clear that there's a lot of merit in investing in the relationship that you're currently in. So would you like to know what the solution to all this is? It's what I call learning to love consciously. So what that means is to evolve past the patterns that you learned from your parents and society, to see conflict as an opportunity to meet each other's needs in a deeper way, to grow together in all areas of your lives, and to reach a new level of happiness than you had in the honeymoon stage. And I'll say from personal experience with my partner now, I mean, we just go so deep in our conversations. It's like you can't imagine going that deep with someone in the beginning because you don't know each other that well, even though it feels blissful. Now it's like the deepest level of fulfillment that I can imagine because we've really put all of these tools and practices to go deeper into our bones. And, now when we have a conflict, we're like, oh, wow, let's explore this. Let's discover what we don't know about each other yet and have it be this, deep, like, roller coaster ride we're going to go on together. And it just feels exhilarating. So I'll share an example of a couple that I worked with to illustrate really what's possible if you look at relationship conflict as an opportunity to grow. So I just love this story, so I keep sharing it. So I worked with a couple who, when they first came to see me, he was feeling depleted because his wife wasn't giving him the affection and attention, and he felt rejected by her. And she, in turn, was angry and had a laundry list of complaints, some of which included who does the laundry. So when I helped them to dig deeper, they discovered that she needed more quality time and more emotional connection so she could feel affectionate. And when they figured out how to give each other what they both needed, which required growth for both of them, she really had to learn how to focus on what she wanted instead of what she didn't want, and really learn how to communicate from an inspiring place around what she wanted with him, and how to ask for what she needed in a loving way without being criticizing and demanding, because that left him feeling like he wanted to connect with her emotionally. And he had to learn how to really prioritize quality time with her, which required him to redo the way that he managed his whole time. So it wasn't easy. And how to really empathize with her feelings rather than just fix them. I mean, how many men are taught to empathize with feelings, like really drop down and empathize with their woman's feelings? I know it's a cliche. Sometimes it's the other way around. I mean, like I said, it was with me. And it was worth it because then they really felt filled up. And because now he was receiving love, he felt an overflow of energy to give and serve his clients. And because he really learned how to serve his wife's emotional needs better, he was really more attuned to his clients' needs better, so he got more business. And this is a quote from him. He said, "The reality is I've never had so many people tell me they want to work with me. They just meet me and say, wow, what a dynamic, amazing individual. You're the one I want to hire." And so coaching has had a tremendous financial impact on me, as well as my confidence, ability, and satisfaction with who I am. So I just love reading that because it's still true. I still keep in touch with this couple to this day. They're on my mailing list. And just the impact that they've been able to have in the world since then, because they weren't fighting. Now they're still not fighting anymore. So now they both have more energy to do community service, to contribute to their kids' school events. Now their kids are teenagers and they're able to, go on, encourage their activities and branching out into the community, doing community service as a family, and became an inspiration for other couples in their community. So imagine the opportunity provided by your relationship stretching your comfort zone, allowing you to grow into the next greatest version of who you want to be in the world. So taking you deeper, I'm going to guide you in creating your opportunity to grow. So here's why I encourage you to take out your notebook. And there's these questions for insight. I'll read them out loud, and then you can just jot down some answers to the questions on your own. I'll give you a minute or so. So first of all, what are you complaining about in your relationship because you think it shouldn't be like this? In what ways do you want to grow? What skills, attitudes, and capabilities do you want to learn that will improve your relationship? And if you dedicate yourself to growing and learning these skills, how will that impact your relationship? And when your relationship improves, how will that impact your life? Areas like your career and your health and your other relationships. So I'll just give you a little bit of time to jot that down. And feel free to share any insights that you're having in the chat box. Let me know if you don't want me to announce what you're writing. I'm reading Sophie's comment about hearing how emotionally fulfilled I am resonates with what she's missing. And it's something she's experienced unconditional love from animals. And I do think that animals are a really wonderful example of unconditional love, especially dogs, right? You come home and your dog loves you no matter what. And I do think that as we take in unconditional love from any source, if it's animals, if it's friends, if it's other family members, if you have a spiritual connection, then that's something that you can source unconditional love from and give it to yourself first, and then give that to your partner, even if they're not giving you love at the moment, because that helps to create a positive cycle. So we'll talk about that. When we get to these tools that we're going to practice at the end, we can tie that in, where it is that you can source unconditional love and compassion for yourself, because we can't rely on our partner to meet our needs in every moment. We can create a relationship to be fulfilling and meet our needs more, but obviously we can't rely on them in every moment. So sourcing love from different places in our lives, like animals, like, family members, like children, is a way to fill ourselves up so we can give more. So moving on. So myth number 2. This is that most of the time, your fights address the real issue. So the truth is that most fights start when a partner reacts to a surface problem, like money or parenting or who didn't take the trash out, when the real issue is deeper and a long time in the making. So who'd like an example? So imagine this. Your spouse is yelling at you. You're late again. And you know from the tone in their voice, this conversation is not going to go well. So what would you do? Would you explain why you were late? Or would you apologize and say it won't happen again? Or tell them to stop nagging? Well, if you do any of these things, you'll wind up feeling distant from each other later. And this is because only part of their upset is about you being late, right? Being on time is important. But the cause of how strong the upset is from what being late means about the emotional connection between you. So I'll say that again. Most fights are really about the state of the emotional connection between the two of you, not what they seem to be about on the surface. So for example, here's some examples of what being late might mean to them. So maybe they're wanting to feel more important to you by you being on time. Or they would feel valued if you showed up on time. Or that's their way of feeling respected. Or maybe they value integrity and they're wanting to feel connected through the shared values. Or maybe they worry on an unconscious level that if you don't keep your agreements with little things, how can they trust you to keep your agreements with the big things, like paying the mortgage or even being faithful for that matter. So let's remember the truth. Most fights are really about the emotional connection, not what they seem to be about on the surface. So, in my coaching system, this is what I help clients to do so that we don't talk about solving the issue at first. First, we just slow down the argument. We tune into each other's softer feelings and emotional needs. We really help understand each other's point of view, to really step into the other person's shoes and feel compassion and empathy for each other. And when I work with people one-on-one, I just help them to imagine what the other person's point of view is. Obviously, only after we've really gotten and experienced your point of view, then there's room to really imagine what the other person's point of view is. So until you really feel compassion and empathy for each other. And then couples, I find, once they really feel heard and gotten and understood, then there's room. There's creative solutions just emerge. Once you actually want to feel connected and you want to find a win-win solution to meet both people's needs. And that's when repetitive arguments disappear, because now they're able to connect on this deeper level instead. So for example, I worked with one couple where she was criticizing and demanding. She said he was on Facebook too much and he didn't pick up after himself, and he would just tune her out. But when he could see that her raising her voice is what triggered him to want to tune her out, and really get into how he felt trapped and controlled by how she asked. And then he could hear that when she criticized him about being on Facebook, it was because she missed feeling close to him. Then they softened and felt connected. And then they could work out solutions. Because he was naturally drawn to her once he could feel her wanting to feel close to him. And then they were able to enjoy their time together again. Because it's really about addressing the root cause, not just focusing on the surface issue. And the good news is that you can learn how to do this. So we'll go into this process deeper later, so you leave knowing how to do this for yourself. All right, so now we'll learn your fighting style. Is it jujitsu or karate? All right, well, it's really important for you to know your fighting style if you think you're stuck in the conflict stage. So if you remember from myth number 1, we talked about the conflict stage. Conflict is inevitable when the honeymoon stage wears off. So here are 9 signs that you're stuck in the conflict stage. And you really want to look and see if there's 3 or more that apply to you. So if you feel regularly misunderstood, unappreciated, or hurt or alone, or it feels dangerous to share your softer feelings, not just, not that your partner is going to necessarily try to hurt you, but that might start a fight. It seems like your partner isn't there for you. There's a fuzzy communication problem or a constant tension. If small disagreements escalate into heated fights pretty often. If you walk on eggshells, afraid to say what you want to say. If sex has become infrequent, or you pretend that you don't need each other. Or if you pursue while your partner withdraws, or vice versa. So I'd like to do a quick poll to find out how many of you are experiencing 3 or more of these 9 signs that you're stuck in the conflict stage. And there's a 30-second delay, so between when I'm saying this and when you're hearing it. So I'm going to put the poll up, and give me a second to load it. There you go. And so I put the poll up, but it'll be 30 seconds before any of you can see it. But basically, so if you look on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a poll that says, are you stuck in the conflict stage? And I just like to poll my, what participants to find out how many of you are stuck in the conflict stage. And if you are, you're really going to want to pay attention to what your fighting style is, because I'm going to teach you how to heal your fighting style and develop the skills for a deeper, intimate connection according to which fighting style you fall into. So if you're stuck in the conflict stage, then chances are that you fall into one of these two categories that I'm going to talk about when I go over the fighting styles. So far, 100% of people are saying that they are stuck in the conflict stage, which I would imagine is true for people that are watching this webinar. I always find that, I don't know, validating at some level that, you know, obviously I have a lot of compassion for people that are stuck in the fighting stage, because I know from personal experience how frustrating and you know, how angry it can be for both people. I find it, maybe validating is the wrong word, but the fact that, you know, so many couples get caught in this conflict stage, it really shows us that we're not alone, and that it's not just happening to us, and it's not like something that our relationship is messed up and, you know, other people walk around and look fine. Like, everyone gets stuck in this stage for a while. All right. So, what's a fighting style? So a fighting style is an unproductive way that one reacts with a partner during conflict that destroys the connection and ultimately sabotages the relationship. So that's the bad news. And we're going to learn your fighting style, and then we're going to learn how to see conflict as an opportunity for intimacy. So that's the good news. So something happens when we go from the honeymoon stage to the conflict stage, and that's a cat and mouse dynamic that shows up. And this happens to about 75% of couples that are stuck in the conflict stage. The other 25% either are both cats where they fight each other, or they're both mice where they run away. But typically what happens is that one partner starts chasing and the other withdraws. One partner gets critical, demanding, angry, or needy, and the other shuts down into their shell, retreats, and withdraws. So we'll call the angry and critical and demanding partner the tiger, because when they get upset, they roar. And they also pursue like a tiger to try to feel connected to their partner again. And we'll call the withdrawing partner the turtle, because they withdraw into their shell. He's a cute little guy, huh? So these terms come from imago therapy, which is one of the influences of my coaching system, the turtle and the tiger. So during conflict, the tiger attempts to get his need or her need for closeness met by speaking louder, making demands, becoming clingy, and really coming into the other person's space. They're the ones that always initiate the conversation, and they try to work it out, and they chase after their partner in an argument to try to resolve it. And the turtle then gets overwhelmed and freezes and wants space and retreats until they feel safe enough to come out again. But of course, the more the turtle retreats, the more the turtle retreats, the more the tiger feels disconnected and pursues more and more aggressively. And then the more aggressively the tiger pursues, the more it overwhelms the turtle and scares them away. And then they withdraw more, and this cycle continues, and around they go. Is this a familiar pattern to anyone? It certainly is with me, because it is the single most common pattern out of all the couples I've worked with and what all the research shows. So I'm going to do another poll. It looks like so far 100% of the people that answered the first poll said they are stuck in the conflict stage. So I'm going to do another poll, and which is, are you a tiger or turtle? And I'm going to share right now in more detail all of the behaviors that tigers and turtles do. So you can answer when you identify yourself. You can answer on the right side whether or not you see yourself as a tiger or turtle. And I want to emphasize before I go into the different behaviors of each style, the first thing I want you to know is that you're normal. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. I know I said 75% of couples get caught in this pattern. But out of the whole population, 50% of the population is either a tiger or a turtle. And we can also, we're influenced by our partner, like we get caught in this cycle. So in some relationships, we can show up as a tiger, and in other relationships, we can show up as a turtle. So basically, these styles are kind of caricatures. They're more exaggerated than what you might do. But it's useful to see how you show up in your current relationship, because there are different tools to be able to heal how you're showing up as either a tiger or a turtle. So listen to these and choose the one that better describes you and what you do when you get triggered in your current relationship. So during conflict, tigers do the following behaviors. So notice if the following applies to you as a tiger. So tigers will either nag or criticize or make demands. They'll pursue the conversation. They'll keep bringing it up. They'll try to push arguments. They'll really want, like, why aren't we talking about this? They'll really get hostile and angry. They'll act needy, like they'll keep on reaching out and trying to get their partner's attention. They'll keep score, like they'll focus on how much they're giving and that they're giving so much and they're not getting enough back. They'll make threats to leave, like, we're not getting along. I don't think I can do this anymore. I knew we weren't really right for each other. And turtles sometimes threaten to leave too, but they mean it. Tigers will threaten to leave kind of hoping that'll make the other person go, oh no, I'm losing them, let me come back. But of course, we all know that has the opposite effect. Or they'll do things to make him or her feel jealous, like making plans to get together with an ex for lunch, or going out with friends to a singles bar, or telling your partner about someone who hit on you today. And this is all unconsciously to be able to make the other person feel jealous because they want to feel wanted. They want their partner to pursue them too. So I want to let you know that this seems like manipulation, but it's really a desperate plea because they don't know what else to do because they feel disconnected. And that underneath all of this, tigers really fear abandonment. And they crave reassurance from their partner that their partner cares about them and they won't leave them. Because usually tigers come from families where for whatever reason they felt abandoned, either physically or emotionally, at least part of the time. So it's a trigger for them. And what do we do when we're triggered? We go into fight or flight. So the tiger fights and the turtle flees. So what happens when we get triggered is that the blood actually drains out of our brain and into our limbs. So we can't think rationally. Like, when you're triggered with your partner and, you're like, you shouldn't say something, and all of a sudden it just comes out of your mouth like, I didn't mean to say that, like in slow motion. That's because literally we can't think rationally in that moment. Like where our brain is operating at the level of a 2-year-old. And just think about it. How does a 2-year-old act when they're left alone in a public place like a supermarket? Wah! That's right. They scream at the top of their lungs, which is basically what the tiger is doing. Or they withdraw and pretend that they're not in danger, which is what turtles do. Because when we're triggered, our brain doesn't have the resources to use more evolved strategies. So you're thinking, wow, they're acting like a 2-year-old. It's a time to have compassion for them because they're triggered and they're not actually capable of acting like an adult at the moment. So it's not to look down on them and have pity for them. It's actually to recognize, what does a 2-year-old need when they're in distress? What they need is to be picked up and comforted and soothed and told that you're there for them and that everything's going to be okay and that you love them and you're going to take care of them in that moment. Not that they're not an adult at this point when they come out of it. So that's what tigers need too, is they need that emotional reassurance. So I know it's counterintuitive because what turtles, want to say is, go out of the room and come back when you're rational. But actually what they need in that moment is soothing, and we'll get to that later. So those are the tigers. Roar! So if you're a tiger, now you probably know it. So far, we have 60% of people saying they're tigers and 33% turtles, which is also common for people that show up at webinars like this, that there's slightly more tigers because they're the ones that pursue the relationship. But also, turtles recognize that there's a problem, that they actually want to make it better and they're not sure how. So I'm happy to see that we have both represented. So who remembers which one I used to be? That's right, I used to be a turtle. And I've been a tiger as well. It just, like I said, it depends on, you know, how you're reacting to your partner. So when a turtle walks into my office, it often takes them a long time to come out of their shell and make their way over to the sofa. If they can climb up on it, okay, that was a bad joke. But in seriousness, many of us are turtles. So I'll tell you how I transformed after I decided to evolve into the secure style, which I'll tell you later. But for now, turtle partners tell me they need space from their partner, and often this turtle partner feels afraid. They might feel overwhelmed by their partner's emotions, and they just, they feel kind of bombarded by them and easily overwhelmed. Or they fear that if they really show up, they might be rejected or controlled by their partner's emotions. So they emotionally shut down to protect themselves and actually to prevent an argument, because they feel like, well, there's no way this is going to go well, so I might as well not be in this conversation. So during conflict, turtles do the following. So check in with yourself to see if these apply to you or your partner. So turtles will withdraw, like sitting silently engrossed and looking at their phone or in their laptop, turning their back on their partner while they're talking to them, acting dismissive, like silently engrossed, rolling their eyes when they speak, looking away, getting up and leaving the room while their partner's talking. And this can be subtle. It can look like, oh, this again? Okay, I can't deal with this. I'm going to go to the other room and get some work done and let him or her cool down, and I'm not going to get into this right now. So that occurs as to the tiger partner as dismissive. And their way of manipulating is acting busy or unapproachable, or just ignoring phone calls, or saying that you have plans when you don't. And they're accused of being emotionally unavailable or stoic or aloof. So underneath this behavior, turtles are scared of being overwhelmed with emotions. So space is a way to not let things get out of control. Or they're scared of feeling trapped and losing their freedom, or of not being good enough to please their partner. Like, they don't know how to really hold their own in this argument. They feel overwhelmed. They don't know what they can say to make it better. So it's like, nothing I do is going to work. So might as well leave the room right now. So often partners who learned to withdraw, they learn to shut down their feelings as children because their family or culture said things like, big boys or big girls don't cry, just get over it. So it's not their fault because no one taught them how to deal with feelings except to turn them off. So of course, like I said, the more the turtle withdraws, the more it triggers the tiger's fear of abandonment, and they get more needy and demanding, which pushes the turtle partner further into their shell. And it causes this vicious cycle. And of course, they get caught in this vicious cycle. And it's a very, very common pattern. And I know because, like I said, I lived it. And once in a while, I still get stuck in this pattern. I mean, in my relationship now, I'm a little bit more like a tiger because, although I don't get like demanding, sometimes I get needy, and I'll reach out just to make sure my partner's there for me. And sometimes I do it in a way that seems needy, and I can feel myself pushing him away. And then that's my opportunity to come back into myself and really take care of myself and focus on my own emotional needs, and then trust that he's there for me. And then later, when he is available, then approach him and say, wow, I feel really insecure. I really need some reassurance from you that you care and that you're here for me. And then he gives it because I'm asking in a really vulnerable, connected way, which I'll talk about later. So I'd like to move on because I'd like to talk about that turtles and tigers are attracted to each other because opposites attract. And it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because there's lots of passion in the beginning. And you can actually learn from each other because you're opposite in that way. You can balance each other out. But it's a curse because if you're not conscious, you'll drive each other crazy until you get help and figure out how to transform this dynamic. And unfortunately, if you don't get help from somewhere, the chances are that you will break up or keep recycling the same issues over and over again. So this leads to a disconnection and a lack of trust in the relationship and a lack of emotional safety. And I hate to say it, but when there's no emotional safety because you're fighting a lot, that's when the intimacy dies. So just quietly answer to yourself if this sounds familiar. Or does it ring true from your relationships from the past? So my clients tell me over and over again that they just get stuck in this cycle. And that's why one of the first things that I do with clients is that, because it just feels so draining, is that to notice that it's this pattern that's playing out in your relationships and many, many other relationships. And it's the pattern that's the enemy, so that you can both join together to fight the pattern instead of fighting each other. And we're going to learn some important tools soon to doing that. Because if you're conscious, you understand what's going on, then you know it's not each other's fault. Would you like to know why it's not each other's fault? Because we all have these wounds that we developed growing up. Like the tiger's fear of abandonment and the turtle's fear of rejection, and both feeling like we're not lovable enough or we're not good enough to really please them. And these are real triggers for us. They're not easy to face. It's not like we're aware that they're going on in the moment when we get angry or we withdraw. We're not aware that these are the triggers that are going on underneath, and they feel painful. So that's why it's really important to be able to notice what's going on with your partner, to develop compassion for how our actions affect them. And then you can be like, wow, we're doing this to each other. What can we do differently together? And that's how you join together as a team. So, because all wounds can heal. Because think back to the last time you helped your partner recover from a scrape or cut or any other injury. You nursed them back to health with love, didn't you? And so the good news is that once you become aware of their childhood wounds, that's how you actually can help each other heal them. So because this isn't therapy, although there's a place for that, it's not about focusing on the past, but it's about holding each other's tender feelings with sensitivity and support. And doing behaviors that meet each other's emotional needs that weren't met in childhood helps to heal those wounds. And then stretching yourself to meet their needs actually helps to grow new parts of yourself. So that's how you grow. So for example, I worked with a client whose father would get really angry and yell, and she was triggered every time her partner raised his voice. And it didn't have to be yelling, it only was a little bit. She'd get really easily overwhelmed. And it wasn't until I helped him to really hold space for how sensitive she was to tone of voice and why that came from her dad and why it wasn't anything he was doing wrong. That's when he could actually recognize the effect that he had on her, and he could really comfort and soothe her pain. Then they were able to co-create together a hand signal that she would use to tell him to soften his tone, and he got it. He didn't take it personally anymore because he got her trigger. And then it was easy for her to just communicate with him to lower his tone of voice, and he got it, and he didn't see that there was anything wrong with him. So they could easily de-escalate conflict and just soften their voices together when they were talking about arguments, and if not, take a time out and come back and soothe each other. And then they could really talk about anything after that without fighting. And it was really that simple, it's just getting her triggers. So it's about helping each other attune to each other's sensitive spots with empathy and tenderness. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to trigger each other more, but you really learn how to soothe each other's triggers when they happen, so that it doesn't turn into an argument. So let's talk about how to really soothe and heal these patterns now. So the first step in healing this is learning from what the other 50% of the population does. So like I said, approximately 50% of the population fits into one of these two categories of the tiger or the turtle, or, you know, you go from one to the other, because they're both called insecure attachment styles. I call them fighting styles because it's more fun, but the research calls them insecure attachment styles. So the third attachment style is called secure. I love this little cute little picture. So this all comes from a body of research called attachment theory, which started out studying how children form secure bonds with their parents. And for the past 30 years, researchers have been studying couples and how they form what's called attachment bonds. And would you be surprised to learn that they found that there are certain behaviors that secure couples have in common that make their relationships really last a lifetime? And would you like to find out what they are? So these certain behaviors that secure people are comfortable doing are, well, first of all, they feel comfortable with emotional closeness and staying present when their partner feels emotional and learning how to have empathy and compassion for their partner's emotions. They learn how to listen and reassure and comfort their partner when they're upset. They learn how to identify and ask for their emotional needs in a way that is inspiring to their partner to listen to their needs rather than in a critical or demanding way. They feel comfortable with meeting their partner's needs and creating a healthy dependence, which is, you know, interdependence, where you're actually both dependent on each other for your emotional needs and in a healthy way, and to trust that your partner wants to meet your needs. So you'll really come to a, you know, conflict knowing, hey, my partner's there for me. They want to meet my needs. Let me, you know, then I won't get triggered. Then I'll actually be like, all right, it seems like our needs conflict. Let's find a creative solution. And so that's how they approach the conversation. So would you like to know more good news? It has been proven that these behaviors can be learned. It's not like you're born with them. Guess where you learned the behaviors you currently have from? That's right. It usually comes from modeling our caretakers as children. So you can teach an old husband new tricks. So whether a tiger gets needy or demanding or a turtle withdraws, both are protective strategies against feeling vulnerable emotions like fear and hurt and sadness and longing. So if I'm really going to bottom line this for you, turtles and tigers protect against feeling vulnerable. And securely attached people unleash and transform their vulnerability as a secret weapon of love. All right, sounds silly, but a lot of the relationship researchers, and especially Brene Brown, who does all of her research about vulnerability, shows that this is really getting comfortable with vulnerability really is what prevents you from fighting and allows you to go deeper in an argument. So I'll share with you the steps that turtles and tigers can take to heal the fighting style that you get caught in. And as you've probably guessed, this is what secure people do when they fight, that de-escalates the conflict and turns it into an intimate conversation instead. So the turtle and tiger can model what secure people do to create a secure relationship. So we'll start with the tigers first. So here's what tigers can do to become more secure, and these are the steps that I teach tiger partners to do when I work with tiger partners one-on-one. So when they're upset, tiger partners can slow down and take 5 deep breaths. So we can all do this right now together as we're listening to this. That was 1. You can keep going. And just notice if you take 5 deep breaths, how that affects the way you feel in your body. And then to tune into the softer feelings underneath the anger, because anger is and frustration are usually protective emotions that cover up the softer feelings like fear and sadness and pain and loneliness and longing. So I made a list of softer feelings that you can have in a handout that I'll show you in a bit. To identify your unmet needs, to turn your partner into an ally instead of an adversary, so that you're really gonna let them know what they need to win to meet your needs. And we'll go over emotional needs in a bit too. And to learn to trust that your partner wants to meet your needs if you express them differently than you have been. So that's, through doing experiments. And then to really, on a regular basis, express your needs in a way that brings you closer rather than farther away. So that's what we'll practice in a bit. I will give you an exercise. I'll show you a demo. We'll have some fun. Anyway, this is fun for me. So who remembers which one I used to be? That's right. I used to be a turtle. So here are the steps that turtle partners need to take to become more secure. To learn how to see underneath the anger and manipulation of their partner and soothe the tiger's softer feelings. So I know this is really hard at first for tigers to do. It seems counterintuitive to us turtles because we just want to say, go into the other room and calm down and talk to me when you're calm. But that just makes the tiger more angry. Tigers, is that not true? So when the turtle learns how to soothe the tiger will calm down. So I know a lot of people grew up in families where you suppressed your emotions and never learned how to soothe. So if this doesn't come naturally to you, I teach a step-by-step, word-for-word process to learn how to soothe each other so you can heal each other's insecurities and feel close again. And we can talk more about that at Q&A time. So turtles also have to learn how to identify their feelings and needs and ask for them. Because most turtles grew up in families where they were taught they had to be strong. So they might not think they have these softer feelings and needs. And there also is a lot of stigma against men being vulnerable. So there is like a right balance for men to share their vulnerability to make sure that their partner is ready to hear it in that moment. And when they do, then that can really strengthen the relationship and be seen as courageous and strong. And if you share it in the wrong moment, then it can be seen as weakness and cause an argument. So it really is this right balance of learning how to attune to your partner's emotional state. And same thing with women. I don't want to, stereotype. When women share their vulnerable feelings, they need to make sure that a man is in the space to be able to hear them. It goes both ways. So we'll talk about that in a bit. But really learning how to attune to where your partner's at and what they need is what creates this feeling of you can handle anything, you can work through anything, and that just makes you stronger together. So tonight we're going to practice the most important behavior that secure couples have. Ready? So remember I said that when they feel angry or critical or like running away, they're able to go underneath to find the softer emotions like sadness or fear or longing and identify the emotional need that's underneath and just communicate it in a way that draws their partner closer. So that's what we're going to learn how to do. So what they learn to do is turn their partner into an ally when they're upset so they can solve the problem together rather than seeing them as the enemy. This is the key difference. It's not like anger is bad. Anger is a valid emotion. It's what you do with the anger that matters. So you can use the force of the anger to say, I'm going to identify what it is that's really underneath this for me. To identify your feelings and to fight the misunderstanding with your partner instead of fighting your partner. And it's hard to do at first, but it's a habit that can be cultivated. So let's do a bit of a role play to demonstrate this before I explain how to do it, shall we? All right. So I want you to pretend that you're my partner. And let's say that I perceive that you're spending more time with your friends than with me, and we don't spend enough time together anymore. So I already feel jealous. Everything's more important than me, your work and your friends, and you go out with your friends, but you don't go out with me anymore. You've heard the story, right? So I'm going to approach you about this in two different ways. So the first is as a tiger, and notice if you recognize yourself or your partner as a tiger. And the second will be as the lauded, secure attachment style. All right. So as a tiger, let's say I just heard you on the phone with your friends for an hour or a friend. And I'm in the other room sort of fuming, and I don't do anything to get underneath my jealousy. I just here you get off the phone and I walk into the room and I say, you talk more to your friends than you do to me. They must be more important than you. You never make time for me anymore. You obviously don't care. So obviously that's exaggerated, but just notice what you feel right now as you hear me say that. And now I'll practice the secure conflict style. So I'm going to just hit highlight the chat box again here on the right hand side, because if anyone wants to share any insights that they've had from this, go ahead. And now I can see your chats again. So if same situation, if I hear you on the phone with your friend for an hour and then I go into the room and want to talk to you, so I would feel angry and jealous, just like in the first example. And the way I would handle it during that hour that I'm listening to you is I would be feeling the softer, I'd be feeling the anger, and it feels like a heat, in my chest that sort of goes into my arms and, makes me want to like reach out and talk to you. But I would also feel the softer feelings underneath. Which is the fact that I miss you, and with a belief that I trust that if I learn how to reach out to you with these softer feelings, then I can actually touch you and draw you closer with them. Then I'm just going to feel that longing, and I'm going to soothe my own sense of longing. And then I'm going to walk into the room and say, first of all, is this a good time to talk? Because there's something that I want to talk about. And you notice that my voice is soft. And if you sort of raise your eyes around me, I'll be like, I love you and I want us to feel more connected by talking about it. So it's sort of, do you see how that's different than we need to talk? I'm just laughing because that's the stereotype. So then I might say something like, and if it is a good time, then I might say something like, so when I just heard you talking on the phone with your friend for an hour and you really seem so happy, I felt jealous, and underneath that, I really feel sad because I miss when we used to talk for hours, and I know that we haven't been spending a lot of time together lately. And I'm scared because I know we're so busy, but I want to make more time to connect with you like that. So, I'm scared to say that because I'm scared that you don't want the same thing, but I'd really like to work out a way that we could spend more time together. So what do you think about that? What's going on for you? So if anyone wants to type into the chat how that felt better, how that felt differently than the first one. I see Sophie and Juliana are sharing a lot, and we will get to them at the end. So because I want to really be able to leave enough time for questions. I see we have 20 minutes left before questions. So just notice how the secure attachment style turns your partner into an ally. It's like being on the same team again, because remember, you both really do want to help each other get your needs met. So are you ready to go a bit deeper? So what you may have noticed is that I expressed my need, but I wasn't being needy and demanding, because I trusted that we would find a win-win solution together. And also ask yourself, what might you need to believe in order to express your need like I did when I was demonstrating the secure style? Because reprogramming beliefs is something beyond the scope of this workshop, but I wanted to touch on that because like who you're being that is showed in your beliefs is more important than what words you use, is it not? So I help my clients reprogram their beliefs in my coaching system. And this is one of the things my clients tell me is the most helpful in really putting this into practice. So remember how a secure relationship is built on a foundation of security. What I mean by needs. So I'll show a slide that really talks about these needs, and just take a look at this and notice if these needs apply to you, and I'm going to read them out loud. Because in our culture, we're taught not to be needy, to be self-sufficient. And that's wonderful when we can do that. But it also means that we risk hiding our vulnerable feelings and needs out of fear of rejection or abandonment and pretend that everything's fine. And this causes us to feel disconnected. So we really have to learn to share our deeper feelings and needs in order to endear our partner to us, because that's what builds closeness and trust. Because we all do have needs that we can't meet for ourselves, right? Remember the first time you kissed yourself on the lips and how magical that was? Everyone try that now. Oh, you mean it wasn't? Or you never did that before? Clearly, we all do have needs that we really do healthfully depend on our partner to satisfy. So I'm going to read these needs and just see which ones have the most emotional response for you in case you can't read them because maybe you don't have the best internet connection. So I'll read them out loud. And these needs are also on the handout that I will give you in a bit when we do the exercise, very shortly. All right. So these needs are things like, I'm special to you, that you really value our relationship, that I'm wanted by you as a partner and a lover, that making me happy is important to you, that I'm loved and accepted with my failings and imperfections, that I can't be perfect for you, that I'm needed, that you want me close, that I'm safe because you care about my feelings and hurts and needs. I can count on you to be there for me and not leave me alone when I need you the most. That I'll be heard and respected. Please don't dismiss me or leap into thinking the worst of me. Give me a chance to learn how to be with you. That I can count on you to hear me and to put everything else aside. I can ask you to hold me and to understand that just asking is very hard for me. I need that reassurance that I'm number one with you and that nothing is more important to you than us. And that I can count on you to hear and respect my opinions. And these needs come from a book called Hold Me Tight from an author named Susan Johnson, who's also somebody who was highly influential in my coaching system, and I trained in her method for the last 6 months. And I list that book in the handout that I'll show you in a minute as well. So just take a look at these needs and just notice which one stands out the most for you, that's really up for you right now in your relationship. Because now maybe it's easier to see that as much as we don't want to be needy, we do have these needs. And as much as we don't want our partner to be needy, we do want to come out a winner by learning how to satisfy their needs, right? And my clients show me that there are creative ways to meet both people's needs once you're connected. And that's when you really feel that your relationship is safe and secure. So, because I believe in giving you value, let's do this exercise to give you a taste of this. So now I'm going to put a handout on the right side of your screen. Here we go. So if you look on the right side of your screen, there should be a handout and it says View PDF. And if you're watching the replay or if you're watching this on a YouTube video, then I am pasting the link to the handout in the comments. So scroll below the video to see it. And basically, I'm going to look at the handout myself right now. So I'll leave the needs. The needs are on the second page of the handout, and they're also up on the slides right now. So the exercise is to share your softer feelings and needs to draw your partner closer. So I'd like you to remember a recent argument and not something that was like, you know, like talking about, I'm going to break up with you, like not something really intense. Something mild, like your partner left their socks on the floor, or, you know, something that was mildly annoying, because it's best to practice this when we're not really triggered to kind of get our feet wet right now. So think of something like that, and we're going to try to get underneath the upset to one of these softer feelings and needs that are listed below. And then to write a sentence describing what happened and how you felt and what you were needing. So some tips are to use I statements, like I saw or I heard, like what a video camera would see. So a video camera wouldn't see that your partner's a slob or that it was a mess. A video camera would see there were socks on the floor. So that's not, you know, a judgment. You would say, I feel, and share your softer feelings like sadness or fear or longing. So these are a list of softer feelings on the bottom of the first page of the handout. And then look at the emotional needs and just choose which one resonates most with you right now. So just to write out a sentence that says, when I saw or when I heard, I felt, and I need or I want or I'm longing for more of or I value one of these emotional needs. So maybe it'll be, 2 sentences. The name of that book that I told you about is on the bottom of the second page of the handout as well. So that should be on there, and if you can't see the handout, just let me know in the chat and I will make sure that it's up there. But it should pop up on the right side of your screen if you're watching this live, and also in the replay, and if you're watching the YouTube video, I will paste it in the comments. So I'll give you another minute or so to write down this sentence or two, and then you can also type in questions in the chat. Yeah, so I'm reading the chat and people are saying how emotionally disconnected they feel, and that's totally normal because of how we were raised in our culture. And really, I mean, if you look at how most people still live in the world, we're not really, most people in the world are still in survival mode. There's no room to feel our emotions. It's really only in first world societies that we do have room to feel our emotions and have these deeper, intimate connections, and it's a privilege to have this opportunity to be able to dive deeper into our emotions and feel that sense of empathy and compassion for yourselves and for each other. And that really, in my experience, causes a ripple effect into everyone whose lives we touch. So it might seem hard and challenging right now. And just like anything else, the more you practice this, the easier it gets. And the more confidence you develop in your ability to work out anything with your partner, and that level of confidence feels so, like, to me at least, it feels like it just gives me so much strength. I'll just talk briefly about a paradigm in the research called the dependency paradox, which is that they've shown through different forms of research that the more secure you feel in your relationships, which means the more you can healthfully depend on your partner to meet these emotional needs, the stronger you actually feel to be independent in your life outside your relationship, because you trust that if you take risks and you fail, that you have this secure base, this safe haven, that your partner is going to be there to comfort and soothe you if you feel like you didn't accomplish something or you failed at something. So you're actually stronger independently, and I definitely feel that. It's just incredible. So that's the benefit. It's like to ask yourself, like, what makes it worth it to really go through these challenging emotions and to learn how to communicate about them. Oh, Juliana is saying, I love this side that's up. I can download the PDF, but my internet keeps kicking me out. Oh, okay. That's okay. It's okay. I'm glad you can download the handout. So it's okay if you can't comment now. We can just move on. I'm actually a tiny bit behind schedule anyway. Sorry about that. But I will leave the last half hour for questions. So we will move on. So actually, before we go to that slide, I just want to share a common question that people have, which is, well, what if you speak vulnerably like this and your partner still thinks that you're attacking them? Like, what if I was to say what I said to my partner in that example, like that I want, to know if he wants to make more time for each other, and he says something like, "You're so needy. What makes you think that we don't spend enough time with each other?" Or whatever he said. It was defensive. So I would learn, this is a practice that I really teach as well, to self-soothe, because I would feel hurt in that moment, but I would self-soothe, and then I would respond to him by recognizing, well, he's only saying that because he has his feelings and needs, and he probably is feeling rejected or attacked from things I've done in the past. So whatever I'm going to say, he's primed to see it as an attack. So to have compassion for how he's felt attacked. And then to say something like, so to guess what his feelings and needs are. If he says that in the moment, like, yeah, I know that I have come off as needy in the past. You're right. I'm sorry about that. I'm sure that you felt, really bombarded by me in the past. Is that true? And he'd probably be like, yeah. And then, I might say, I'm sorry for that. Like, I really want to make things better. What could we do right now? What do you think we could do to make things better between us? Or let's say he responded by getting defensive, like, well, you shouldn't be jealous, in which case I can respond by validating his need, which is to be accepted, right? If he's saying that, it means that he wants me to accept him for his behaviors. So you can say something like, honey, I know you didn't do anything wrong by calling your friend. I want you to talk to your friends. I'm not making you wrong. I just miss you. And I want to talk to you about how we can make more time for each other. Is that something that you want to do too? So do you see how I validated his need for acceptance, and then I restated what I was saying? So there's always room for both of your feelings and needs, and that's sort of the ninja move that I teach my clients how to do, which does take practice. But I want you to know that this exercise is a really important piece, but it's only one piece of the picture of how to create this deeper, intimate dance. So that's why I want to share with you. Even though this is a valuable practice, I want to share with you the whole system, my whole Back to Love coaching system, of which this is one piece. And first of all, I want to share where it is that we're going. So the end goal is to go to this place of emotional connection. So what is emotional connection? So I see that as having 3 components. So first of all, you can enjoy each other's company, and the space between both of you feels harmonious, because there is this space between you and your partner that you can feel into. And if you're fighting or disconnected, or if there's tension, you can feel that, right? So you're going to a place where it feels harmonious. And number 2 is that you feel safe enough to share your vulnerable feelings and to risk being accepted, that you really have that, like that trust, which is developed over time, that you work through these issues together and you can share what's coming up for you. And what's the third component? That you're not an opponent and to feel like you're on the same team, that you can trust that your partner has your back and is rooting for you. So how do you get there? So I will share with you the steps that I take my couples through, or just one person, because how you show up does affect your partner, to create love, intimacy, and passion, and the trust that allows you to feel truly passionate about each other. So the first step that I do with couples or with just one of the partners is that we create positive emotional experiences, because we have to create a stronger bond between each other in order to be able to share these deeper, vulnerable feelings. It has to exist in a space that feels good. So we really find positive ways for the partners to connect daily, so verbally or non-verbally. And the biggest excuse is that people don't have time, right? So there's really ways that take 5 minutes or less. Because when was the last time that you called your partner for 1 minute just to tell them about a dream you had, or read them a poem, or appreciate them, not talk about logistical things like who's going to buy the groceries? Or wait till you learn the 3-minute hug that I teach that has your partner melt into your arms like never before. And these are the kind of things that make a huge difference in the love that they feel for each other, even though they don't take a lot of time. So we really build the strength on a daily basis to get the connection feeling stronger before we delve into the vulnerable emotions. And the next thing that we do is we create emotional safety. So that's when we really learn how to identify the cycle that you're caught in and what are these softer feelings underneath the anger and the withdrawal, and what does your partner need to really soothe the softer feelings and needs. And because this exercise that we did was just a taste, and you can imagine how challenging this is to actually put it into practice on a daily basis. So that's what I help my clients to do, is to put it into practice. And emotional safety is what allows the relationship and the space between you to go from feeling like a war zone to feeling like a safe haven where they're teammates again. And I tell my clients, don't worry, because if it's difficult right now for you to express your vulnerable feelings, you'll learn how to access your inner landscape and open up in a way that creates deep trust and fosters an unbreakable bond between you. So step number 3 is that we really learn how to meet each other's emotional needs, because it's one thing to see them on this handout and it's another thing to put into practice. So my clients learn how to listen to each other in a way that makes their partner feel loved, appreciated, respected, and heard. Because so many people say, my partner doesn't listen to me. I feel misunderstood and disrespected. So once my clients learn how to listen in this way, then your partner can see you as somebody who knows how to really get them on such a deep level and feels like, wow, you're the only person in the world that truly understands me. So number 4 is that we end recurring conflict and heal old wounds from the past. Because if we don't resolve old wounds, they keep recurring over and over again, right? Because if you look back on all your relationships, you've probably been experiencing the same issues again and again, right? I know I still do. They just come now in ways where we can resolve them in the moment. Or if you're dating, do you keep dating the same man or woman, but they're just in different bodies? I know I did that until I healed the underlying issues. So this is coaching and not therapy. It's really based on action and not just insight, to uncover the patterns and learn how to meet our emotional needs from the past. And we do this by practicing things like neurolinguistic programming and experiential emotional healing tools. So number 5 is that we learn how to appreciate each other's differences and solve long-standing issues together, because opposites do attract. So you can learn how to work together as a team and learn from each other and co-create ways to be stronger together and really find these win-win solutions, which are only available when you're already connected. So can you feel how lovely that would be to really be able to appreciate it for your differences instead of your partner trying to change you? So for example, I worked with one couple that would judge each other around how they spent money, which is a big issue for a lot of couples. So she was a saver and judged him as irresponsible, and he was a spontaneous spender and judged her as controlling. So once they were emotionally connected and can feel what he got out of spontaneity and what satisfaction she got out of feeling secure, that's when they could soften and feel connected. And we did that before we actually worked out a plan for how they were going to deal with money. Because once they felt connected and they actually wanted to work out a plan together, that's when they were easily able to secure a budget that they both could get their heads around. I mean, it took a little bit of practice and growth to implement, right? But this is how you grow. That also saved enough money for spontaneous spending. And so obviously she had to learn what security felt like and to really learn how to trust that he did want to make her feel secure. And then she had to kind of learn what security felt like and practice, worrying less and feeling more secure now that they had this budget. And he had to learn really how to, keep himself in check, be more responsible, be less impulsive, but get his needs for impulsiveness met in other ways, because we all have this impulsive part of us that wants to take over. And it's not about suppressing anything. It's really learning how to make peace with all the parts of ourselves. And they support each other. it didn't happen overnight. It took a few months. But this is how you can really grow, and both of them learn how to really be more whole and feel more strong, both within themselves and together after this. So that's the opportunity by really learning how to accept each other's differences and work with them. And the last key element in my Back to Love coaching system is deepening physical intimacy and passion. Because when you're arguing, the first thing to go is deep physical intimacy. I mean, you might still be having sex and wondering why I feel so disconnected. And, a lot of people think that they can have a quick fix. Like, I have people tell me, oh, I went out and bought 50 Shades of Grey. That should spice things up. And that's great. But when you're fighting and it doesn't feel emotionally safe, it's not really going to feel, safe to embrace your fantasies together. So now that you're emotionally connected, now you can really embark on erotic adventures together. And clients tell me this is the best sex they've had in their lives now that they can navigate through the emotional landmines and turn them into intimacy. That's when your sexual experiences are going to be passionate celebrations. So I've created a step-by-step curriculum that takes people through this whole system where I hold their hand and give them solutions and strategies and tools to experience love, intimacy, and passion again. So you might be wondering who gets the most results from this Back to Love coaching system. So you'll get the most results if you're a goal-oriented, committed couple or just one half of the troubled relationship and you really value learning and growing. And you want to unlearn your own blocks to intimacy and connection instead of just blaming your partner. And you're willing to really put the tools into practice in your life each week. So these are the kinds of people that I've had the most results with. Because it actually happens a lot where I start working with one partner and then the other partner sees how much better the relationship is getting, and then they come in and join after a few sessions. So if this resonates with you and you're serious about transforming your relationship, then I invite you to apply for a free, private Back to Love strategy session with me over Skype or Zoom or some other kind of video internet connection is the best because then we can really see each other. Or I also do sessions over the phone. So what'll happen is we'll get on the phone for 90 minutes, and I really do give you a generous 90-minute session where we really leave with tools that you can take back into your relationship and a plan for what you can do to transform your relationship and my estimate around how long that plan will take, and really the concrete steps that you need to take to get there. So we start out by really creating a crystal clear vision for what you want your relationship to look and feel like, uncovering hidden challenges that are sabotaging your connection. And these are the things that we talked about tonight, as well as other hidden challenges that you might not see. And then to really get clear on what are the steps you need to take to rekindle the love and intimacy and passion and keep that in the long term. And like I said, we could meet over the phone or Skype, or if you live in Manhattan, we can also meet in my Manhattan office. But I found just as much transformation happens over Skype or even over the phone, although I do think the video is better, that we really get to see what goes on between you if I'm working with both of you. Phone actually works just as well for individuals. So these sessions are valued at $150, and I'm offering them for free for all of you for showing up. I do only have, let's see, in July, I only have 8 sessions open in my calendar. So I invite you to fill out an application as soon as possible. So if you're interested, I'm going to put up the offer here so you'll see it in the same place that you saw the handout. Here you go. I am loading it. So click here to apply. So what will happen is it'll take you to a web page where you can fill out an application, and I'll review it. And if I feel like you're a match to be able to have this strategy session to get value out of it, then I will respond by email and let you know my availability, and we'll schedule a time that works for both of us. So go ahead and click the link if you want to apply. It'll be on the right-hand side of your screen, or if you're watching the YouTube video, I'll post the link below the video in the comments. And I just want to thank you so much for watching and for participating and, staying until the end. And it really shows that you're the kind of person that is committed to transforming your relationship and experiencing more connection and more joy and more passion. And so I would like to, I'd be honored to answer your questions. So now I'm actually going to turn off the PowerPoint presentation and come back to the room with y'all. I know I'm in New York. I don't know why I said that. All right, here we go. I'm coming back. So, all right, I will look in the chat room again, and I'm just going to see if any of you have questions. You can ask them over chat, and I see people sort of chatting over chat, so I'm going to pause for a moment and see if there's any questions in there, and you can type new questions into the chat right now as well. People are sharing their insights about being tigers and turtles. They fear abandonment. Juliana says, to anyone interested, I did the free strategy session and Valerie's terrific. It was a great session. Thank you, Juliana. I appreciate that. I had a lot of fun talking to you as well. And I just enjoy speaking about these relationship challenges because I just feel like this is my element. I love feeling feelings with people, and I love helping people feel their feelings, and I also love just applying the tools that work and seeing them work and seeing people have transformations and feeling more love, because that's just, I have a vision for people creating secure, loving relationships and then having that give them strength to carry out their purpose in the world, because the world needs us to be strong and clear and in our purpose, and two people supporting each other's purposes is so powerful. And just imagine if everyone was getting the love and the intimacy and the passion that they need to be able to take that and be loving parents and, be effective leaders or teachers or perform, more creatively at work and solve the world's other issues. And it takes secure relationships in order to be able to give people that strength. If it's not a romantic relationship, then it takes other secure relationships in our lives, because we all really do depend on each other. So that's my mission, and I love being here to help people. So while we're waiting for people's questions, I can answer some questions that people have asked in the past. My hair does this thing. One question that I've gotten consistently in this workshop is, how do you know if the behavior that your partner's showing up with as a tiger is really abusive? And what do you do in that case? And so the first thing that I say, obviously, is if there's physical abuse going on, then really do seek a counselor around that. It's not going to work to show your vulnerable feelings. And if you feel consistently attacked by your partner and, there's name calling or there's belittling, it is okay to create a boundary around that. And a boundary is not telling someone else what to do. It's not saying you can't say that, right? Because that's controlling the other person. But a boundary is saying, it's not okay to say that around me. And if you call me a name, if you put me down like that, I'm going to leave the room when you do So it's not, that doesn't live up to the standards of what's acceptable to me. So you're not telling them what they can do. They can say it, but if they say it, you're going to leave the room at that point. It's not like you're saying you're going to leave the relationship at that point, because threatening the relationship threatens the security of the relationship. But you don't have to stay in the room with somebody when they're really being extremely disrespectful like that. And so I can help, I can help people discover where the line is. And it really just depends on how overwhelmed you feel. Now, if you're just overwhelmed by your partner's emotions, then you can actually say, I feel overwhelmed by your tone of voice. I feel overwhelmed by these emotions. Like, can we lower our tone of voice? Can we speak more softly, but in a way that's reassuring? And so reassuring looks like making eye contact. If they respond to soothing touch, giving soothing touch, say like, wow, I love you, and you're obviously really upset, and I really want to listen to you. I'm finding it hard to listen to you right now because we're so, there's so many emotions flying around. Like, and soothing them and saying, I hear you, I hear you're angry, I hear you're upset, I want to help you. Can we talk about this? And making it okay for them to be angry, usually making it okay for them to be angry with love and saying you care and you want to work this out and you want to hear them. Eventually, they will, I've seen it happen where what I mean about soothing the partner's anger is that you're saying, okay, I'm going to listen. And then they keep yelling and they keep yelling and they keep yelling and they keep yelling. But usually if you're not fighting with them, they can't stay in that state for more than 6 or 7 minutes. Then they will drop down into the more vulnerable emotions like sadness, or loneliness or desperation or whatever it is. And then you can really hold them and comfort them and soothe them and tell them that you care and you want to work this out and help them work it out. If you don't take the anger personally. Now, of course, that helps when they're not yelling at you and making you wrong and telling you what an idiot you are. And so there's a different tolerance that each of us have for that. I also recommend that, if couples are really going to take a time out when they're in a heated state like that they even take the time out in a reassuring way. So you don't just storm out of the room, but you might be like, wow, I love you. I want to hear you. I'm getting overwhelmed. Can we talk about this in a calmer way? And if they don't, then to be like, I love you. I'm leaving for 10 minutes. I'm going to be back in 10 minutes. And then do. And so that soothes the tiger's fear of abandonment. And you might even do that with eye contact and soothing touch and say, I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back in 10 minutes. Is that okay? Can we come back? Can we cool down and come back in 10 minutes? So you're not just leaving the room and avoiding it. You're actually coming back in 10 minutes. And I do teach a process that you can do during that 10 minutes to get in touch with your more vulnerable feelings and your needs so that you can come back and talk about them in that moment. And it is a deeper process than the one we covered in this handout, which is just an introduction. So it is a fine line that, I can't answer in a one size fits all approach, like how to tell where your boundaries are and what boundaries to implement and whether you should take a timeout and what would really help each other to be able to stay connected even during the timeout, what kind of reassurance they need. These are types of things that we help to figure out when we do talk one-on-one about it. So Juliana is asking, how do you identify a keeper versus when you throw back? And that's an excellent question. Thank you. Because that is one of those questions that I could teach a whole webinar about, right? And probably one of the hardest ones, right? One of the hardest questions in relationships. Because on the one hand, I did share in the beginning that you can, if you leave because you're not getting along, then you'll probably repeat the same patterns with the next partner. And on the other hand, there's times when you're really not compatible with somebody and you're just, wasting your time by staying in the relationship if you're looking for a life partner with someone that you're going to stay with for life. So there's distinctions that I teach around all of this, and there's a couple distinctions that I want to say, which is to really identify your deal breakers. So your deal breakers are things that are not black and white. So the difference between a deal breaker and a need is that there's many creative ways to meet each other's needs. So let's say if you have a need, like let's say one partner is we'll take an easy one. Let's say one partner's messy and the other one is a neatnik, right? And so it seems like, one partner can say, if you're not neater, then we can't live together. I mean, obviously, this is a simple deal breaker, right? It's not as complicated as as the issues that a lot of you are fighting with. But I'm going to take a simple example to illustrate the difference between a need and a deal breaker, right? So this is obviously a need because there's many ways you can work it out, right? Like one partner needs the place to be clean and they need order and they need beauty in the house, and the other partner needs maybe spontaneity or self-expression or whatever need they're getting met by not being clean. There's ways you can have beauty and order and self-expression and independence and spontaneity. You can have all of those needs don't necessarily conflict. You can figure out ways to get all of them met. Like, maybe one partner does all the chores and the other partner does things, gives back in other ways, either financially or with massages or meeting their needs in other ways. There's creative ways to meet each other's needs, and you can do that collaboratively once you've worked through these cycles that you get caught in, and then you're in a space where you want to work out these needs, right? So those are needs. Any of those emotional needs that we talked about in the handout, and then there's also functional needs, which are things like cleanliness or keeping agreements. There's a whole list of emotional and functional needs that I actually give out to my clients, and I also include that in I have a handout about the emotional functional needs as well. So if you email me at valerie@coachvaleriegreen.com, I can email that to you. I also have that as part of my free e-course, how to stop fighting in 3 steps. And one of those 3 steps is the handout in needs. If you're watching this live webinar, you've already been subscribed to my list, and that's the on my homepage. I offer that as like the free offer. So if you're watching this and you haven't gotten that, just email me and I will send it to you. So those are needs, and those are different than deal breakers. Deal breakers are things that you can't work collaboratively to solve. They're black and white. They're things like whether one of you wants kids and the other doesn't. You can't compromise on that. You can't have half a kid. You can't be half pregnant. If your partner really doesn't want kids and you do, it's best to figure out a way to part ways, because you'll never be satisfied if that's something that you really see as part of your life purpose, to have a child, if your partner doesn't want to have a child. Another deal breaker is things like physical or emotional abuse. And like I said, I can help people figure out where the line is on that, because that's also a complicated issue. Another deal breaker is something like addictions. And that could be, not just addictions to drugs or alcohol, but to certain avoidance patterns, like them being a turtle and not changing after a few months of, you showing up differently. Having some kind of emotional handicap, like being a narcissist, which is something that we could figure out. Like, I don't make diagnoses like that, but if they really can't meet your emotional needs because they have some kind of handicap, then, that's something to decide whether you want to live with that for the rest of your life. Or things like lifestyle, like some people really want to live a certain lifestyle. Some people, like, their dream is to travel around the world with their partner for the rest of their life, and the other partner really wants to be a homebody and stay at home most of the time. If that's so important to one partner or the other, then maybe they're not meant to be together. They can love each other, but allow them to find partners that are more compatible. So those are your deal breakers, and those are things to really decide. The other thing that I coach couples to figure out whether they're compatible is whether you have shared values. And values are things like, you know, what kind of spiritual lifestyle you want to have, whether you want, how you want to be of service to the world. For me, empathy is a real strong value. So it's important to me that my partner has empathy for me. Personal growth is a really important value to me. Obviously, I'm a coach, and so I'll have friends where their top values aren't personal growth, but I don't have that deep a connection with them because, this is just what I eat and breathe. So it's like when I feel like I'm around someone that really values growth and discovery and like, ooh, we have a conflict, let's get underneath that and, open up the hood of the car and see what's underneath. That's when I really feel close with somebody. And I wouldn't choose a life partner that didn't have that same value, just because that's like what causes me to really be lit up. But maybe that's not your top value. Maybe your top value is something else. And so I also have a list of values that I'm happy to email people. There's so many lists of values out there if you just Google them. And then to find out what values it's really, really important for you to share with a partner. And if your partner just has totally different values, then values are really what makes a relationship last in the long term. So you might start out having chemistry, being, in the honeymoon phase, you have shared interests, but those things change over time. What doesn't change over time is the values that you're the most deeply committed to. So that's really what you want to base your partnership on. And also your vision for your life and your life purpose. And that's something to get clear on, because if you're looking for someone in the long term, if they have a totally different vision for what they want in the future, I mean, obviously that's going to change too. But if you have a different vision for what you want in the future now, then it doesn't make sense to create a future with somebody where now that you're going to part ways. So those are the kinds of things that make people incompatible. And I would say that, those are things to discover. It's not an easy answer. But there are, so to ask yourselves those questions, and those are like, what are my deal breakers? What are my values? What is my life purpose? What is my vision for the future? And are those compatible? Those are really the questions to ask about the other person. And everything else can be negotiated. And so how do you tell if, someone's a keeper is if they're compatible with you in those ways. And if they're not compatible with you in those ways, then your relationship has a shelf life. You can only stay with somebody for a certain amount of time if you want kids and they don't. Eventually, it's going to be an issue that breaks you up. And unfortunately, I've seen relationships break up after years for that reason. And the longer you stay with someone that is not compatible with you in the long term, the more it's going to hurt when you break up, because you're so attached to that person. And so in that case, I think it makes sense to, once you realize that you are incompatible, to break up sooner than later, but to not break up just because you're fighting. And that's what I was talking about in the beginning, because if you're fighting, that means that you're doing something that contributes to the conflict. So I think it makes sense not to break up until you've really learned how to show up, how you can show up in a different way, to be able to create that emotional safety, to create that positive connection, to be able to show up in a way that inspires your partner to want to connect with you. that inspires connection, where you're learning how to meet their needs, and you're learning how to process your feelings and express your feelings in a way that's more inspiring. You're really learning as a, as a man or a woman, to really balance your own masculine and feminine energies to create more passion. You're learning the skills to have a relationship work, because you can only learn those in relationship. You can't learn those after you've broken up. You can only learn those with a partner. So it makes sense to practice those skills with the partner that you're with, assuming that you don't have any of these major incompatibilities that I just talked about. If you're fighting, it makes sense to learn how to stop fighting. I mean, that's what happened with me and my ex-husband. We learned these skills. We really implemented them over 2 years, until at the end we were like, wow, I love you so much that I want you to have what you want. And it's not the same things that I want in my life. So let's part ways because we love each other. Like, that's the space to break up in, so that now you can meet someone else who is more compatible, because you have all these skills. And conversely, actually, my boyfriend now left his last partner because she wanted kids and he didn't. And they'd been together for years, and it was so hurtful when they broke up. And if they had known that sooner and broke up sooner, it would have been less painful. So those are two conflicting stories. One where it worked, where it would have worked to break up sooner, and the other where it worked to stay in relationship longer, to learn these skills so we could part ways and still be friends and still love each other. So I know that's a long answer to your question, but I think this is probably the most, how should I call it? One of the most complex questions and important questions to be asking. Like, how do you know if you're with the right person? So just going back to it, there's deal breakers, there's values, there's life vision and life purpose. And then what skills do you want to learn while you're still in this relationship, and can you put those into practice while you're still here? Or if you're really incompatible, how do you break up in a peaceful way? So that is also something that I guide people through. That's not my Back to Love coaching program. That's actually closer to a conscious breakup program, which I also have guided people through. And then you can break up without the drama and heartbreak. You could really bring it to a close in a peaceful way and go your separate ways, and meet the right person, the next right person, after everything you've learned and all the ways that you've grown, through going through this breakup with an open heart. So anyway, Juliana says, that was great. Thanks. You're welcome. I know it's kind of long-winded. I like to try to, since this is just me, and obviously if we were talking one-on-one, then I would be listening to you more. But with the limitations of the webinar platform, you could just answer, you can just ask questions, and then I give you, the most thorough answers that I can, because that's how I roll. So I'll stay on the line for another couple of minutes. It is 9:58 here in New York City. I don't know what time it is where you are. If anyone has any last questions, I appreciate everyone's presence and openness. This is probably the last time I'm going to do this webinar live, but I will send you all the replay. And I am creating a new webinar that is for women only. Sorry, guys. I'm sure I'll create one for men only later. But as a woman, I'm just going to share the insights that I found from a woman's perspective on how to inspire your man to fulfill your needs and desires, because it is the woman's job to be inspiring. I mean, it's both partners' jobs to be inspiring to their partner, to meet their needs, not to be demanding about it. So I'm just going to share from a woman's perspective all the tools and skills that you can implement to shift your relationship dynamic and have your man show up and want to meet your needs, and how to meet his needs so that he wants to do that. And it's fun. And so stay tuned for that. I will be releasing that probably sometime in July or early August, and a whole program out there for women. So I'm super excited about that. And I look forward to connecting with you. So I will leave this link up here for the strategy session on the right-hand side of the screen. And it's also going to be below the YouTube video. Just looking at the chat, people are saying thank you. And it's my deepest pleasure, really, to be able to serve people and feeling more love in their lives, because it's such a meaningful and fulfilling experience to feel more love, isn't it? And that's my purpose. And that's how I've attracted a partner that supports me in all ways through that purpose. And I'm just deeply grateful and here to pay it forward. So with that in mind, I encourage you all to reach out to me if you want more support in any way, or you have questions. You can either schedule a strategy session, or you can just email me at Valerie, VALERIE, at Coach Valerie Green, like the color with an E at the end.com. Valerie at CoachValerieGreen.com. And I look forward to hearing from you and talking to you and helping you experience more love in your lives so that you can pay it forward to the world and to those that you love. So I bid you adieu, and hopefully we will stay connected. Good night, and best wishes. Mwah.